Grip socks are great, and now they're even better with Pure Grip Socks Pro. Better fit, moisture wicking, amazing comfort, and all the extra grip you need. Choose from 10 different colors for just $16.99 a pair at puregripsocks.com.
For a long time now, Nike has done a really good job with their turf and indoor options, with the latest generation of Mercurial being no different. Ladies and gentlemen, the Nike Zoom Mercurial Vapor 15 Pro, this particular version being the turf option, which is the only option you can get with this model, retailing for $120, and unlike so many other indoor and turf boots, it features an upper that is specifically designed for use on a turf playing surface. I'm going to run you through the tech, talk about who and which playing surfaces these would be best suited for, and also take a look at how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around, and if you're interested in a pair for yourself, you can get them below their normal $120 retail price by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes by checking out the first link down below. And really quickly, if you do want to see more turf and indoor boot reviews on the channel, don't forget to support this one with a like, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss out on all my reviews of all the latest football boots of 2022. So we're actually going to start this review from the bottom up. The Turf Outsole. What is this even made for anymore? Because obviously Nike themselves make an AG stud pattern for the Mercurial and all their other lines. Well, for use on artificial grass, the grass with the rubber pellets scattered throughout that has some decent depth to it, this is functional on that surface and that you're going to have adequate traction. Is it going to have the bite of a stud? No. If that's what you're after, then you definitely want something with an AG stud pattern. But if you want good grip without digging in, perhaps a little bit of a safer feel and certainly more impact protection in terms of having that little bit of cushion under your heel, because even the nicest artificial grass playing surfaces can be somewhat unforgiving, that's where a turf outsole really comes into play. And then obviously, if you do play on that older style of turf, kind of like that rough carpet material that's typically sat on top of concrete, then obviously this is going to be the ideal layout. As far as using this on an indoor court is concerned, it's not going to be ideal in terms of traction, and as far as like a concrete or street type environment, again, not going to be ideal in terms of traction, and will probably wear out a little bit more quickly than you'd like. As far as the turf pattern is concerned, it's made up of all these little kind of oval shaped nuds. There's some other shapes in there as well, but in my experience with these and pretty much every other turf shoe, there's not a lot of variation. A turf outsole performs like a turf outsole, so there's not too much to really nitpick there. I do like the fact that it's a really durable feeling type of rubber. All of the nubs go right to the edge all the way around, and you have a pretty significant rubber lip around the forefoot and toe box area for the sake of overall durability. And then you'll also notice this little window here in a chevron shape at the bottom of the heel. In typical fashion, Nike likes to incorporate the same technologies in their indoor models as well, although even though it's new this year for the Mercurial, it's been featured on their indoor models for quite some time. This does have a single zoom unit underneath the heel, so it's not the same one you're going to find on the Elite model. It's actually pretty similar to the FG version of the Pro, but a little bit more noticeable here in that it sits in this foam carrier where you have a little bit more foam in the heel and midfoot, and then it kind of tapers down to nothing. It's not a very stiff outsole at all. The boot as a whole is very, very flexible, but you'll definitely notice that little bit of heel cushion from that zoom unit underneath your feet, which I actually quite like. Which brings us to the upper, in my opinion, the highlight of the Vapor 15 Pro Turf. It features their Hyper Screen material, which is nothing new from Nike. We've seen this material on a bunch of different indoor and turf models basically since 2019, if my memory is correct. And what you're gonna notice is that it's a mesh-based material with these strips of rubber kind of scattered across the entire upper that are there for the sake of additional grip on the ball, but also provide structure without taking away from flexibility. The mesh base is super, super pliable. So unlike the Vaporposit Plus upper that you're going to find on the FG versions of the Mercurial, whether it's the Elite or the Pro, even though the Pro technically doesn't have a Vaporposit Plus upper, it's very similar. This is much more sock-like. It's more along the lines of a knitted feel rather than that raw synthetic that you're going to find from the FG models. They still incorporate the speed cage reinforcement, which you can see faintly outlined, which provides nice structure with the laces tied tight. Granted, I definitely don't think this is quite as secure and locked in as what you're going to find from an FG Mercurial, but from a comfort perspective, these are undeniably extremely comfortable out of the box, and in terms of touch, the material is thin, and you get that additional grip on the ball ball without it feeling sticky. So I know you see rubber on the upper and think automatically this is going to compare to something like a Predator Edge. That is not necessarily the case, in that this isn't super sticky on the ball. It's additional grip without that tacky sensation, which I personally really like. And I think what's also great about this, specifically for use on artificial grass outside in the summer, is because it's a mesh-based synthetic with a mesh liner, there's a breathability aspect to this. And because the upper is so soft and pliable, especially for training, if you like to have that extra grip in a match, I totally understand. But for training, I think from a comfort perspective, if you're trying to give your feet a little bit of a break and avoid blisters, something like this is 100% what you want. And given the $120 retail price, there really isn't much of a reason not to have something like this if you regularly play on AG fields in the summertime. The boot does have a one-piece upper construction with a central lacing system, so it does of course relate to other Mercurials in that way. Then you're going to find a low-cut construction and internal plastic heel counter, this really soft microfiber lining material with the perfect amount of padding. And for those curious about the insole, it is fully removable, features a mesh liner on top, and is made from a single layer of this red ortholite foam. Which brings us to the weight, where keeping in mind that turf boots in general have a ton of rubber on the bottom, which is typically a very heavy material, you can only set your expectations so high. And honestly, these feel relatively light. In a size 9.5 US, you can see that the Zoom Vapor 15 Pro Turf weighs in at 9.1 ounces, the equivalent of 257 grams, which by FG boot standards isn't particularly impressive, but for a pair of turf boots, especially if you're looking for something in the speed category, these are going to be some of the lighter ones out there. On feet, there truly isn't much to complain about here. I think the one thing that you need to be aware of if you're planning on picking these up and already have an FG pair of the latest Mercurials is that these don't really have the same width or overall shape to them. It's really hard to get that with a turf outsole. Instead, you have a shape here that's a little bit wider, a little bit more rounded in the toe box area, and obviously the feel of the upper, this hyper-screen mesh-based material versus the Vaporposit, which has more of a plasticky synthetic sensation. This is much more knitted and sock-like, and honestly, just softer against your feet. I would argue more comfortable, but not necessarily a bad thing, just a different feel compared to other Mercurials. And I think that's the most deceptive part here, in that this is labeled as a Vapor 15 Pro, but they really don't feel like an FG pair of Vapor 15 Pros in really any way at all, which again, not necessarily a bad thing, just something that you need to be aware of. As far as width is concerned, I think the width is perfect. You have plenty of adjustability with that central lacing system, in that they fit snug without suffocating your feet. So definitely a little bit wider than a regular pair of Mercurials would be, and a width that I think is going to be suitable for most people as long as you don't have excessively wide feet. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you are looking to get a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, as far as turf boots go, these are a no-brainer. They're comfortable, they fit super well, the upper moves nicely with your foot, you get that additional grip, there's a breathability aspect to it, the turf outsole is great, they're not super heavy or chunky on your feet, and they're reasonably priced. Even if you're not necessarily into Mercurials, I wouldn't say that they relate all that much to the actual Mercurial line, talking about the FG models, which I think some people might be a little bit disappointed about, but in general, taking away the fact that this has Mercurial and Air Zoom branding all over it, it's a really solid pair of football boots at a very reasonable price.